then she gets one. You all ready? Okay. You ready? Yes. I'd like to call to order the regular governing board meeting of the Jefferson Elementary School District, May 22nd, 2024 at 7:03 p.m. And can we please get members present? A roll call.
Manufo Leah Inga Anuai is not present. Aaron Rashba,
Here.
Anthony Sujisaka,
Here.
Andrea Jordan,
Here.
Shaquille Ali.
Here. Thank you. And now we'll ask the wonderful students from Daniel Webster to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously approved. Now we have a special presentation. Ethnic Studies Changemakers at Daniel Webster Elementary School. Principal Rochelle UN, teachers Ellen Hollander and Christina Biondini, and fifth grade students of Daniel Webster Elementary School will present on the learnings through the new Ethnic Studies program for the past 2 years, which has promoted inclusivity, social responsibility, and enhanced academic engagement and performance.
Good evening, school board members, district office administrators, students, families, teachers, staff, and community members. My name is Rochelle Pimentel-Ewan, and I have the privilege and honor of being Daniel Webster Elementary School's principal. Tonight, I'm joined by an amazing group of fifth grade students and their equally amazing teachers, Miss Ellen Hollander and Miss Christina Biondini. They are here tonight to present some of the things they have learned and studied in regards to ethnic studies in their classes. At this point, I'll hand it over to Ms. Hollander and Ms. Biondini to share a little bit about the presentation tonight and introduce their students.
Thank you. I'm Mrs. Hollander. Fifth graders have been learning through the new Ethnic Studies program for the past 2 years, and it has promoted inclusivity and social responsibility.
Fifth graders have been focusing on their sense of identity and learning skills to prepare them for their diverse society. And we figured that the best impact is to hear straight from the students. So come on up.
What we learn in the ethnic studies curriculum. In ethnic studies, we learn about the history of many important leaders, such as Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., and Malcolm X. The importance of learning all of these people is that they have changed the world in many different ways, and their actions still has an impact on the world is today. Ethnic studies is a very important subject to learn because if we didn't learn ethnic studies, we wouldn't be able to recognize the people that have helped the world. The impact ethnic studies has on us is that it teaches us learning skills for social responsibility.
What you will be learning about from our book. In our Changemakers book, which will be delivered next week, you will be learning about many leaders that have helped the world, that have helped make the world a better place. You will learn about the activists and their life story and how they have contributed to improve the world. This book has helped us learn about how to not judge people depending on where they are from.
Changemakers Cultivating Project. A changemaker is someone who works to improve the environment around them. The Cultivating Project has been to research one of the many changemakers in history and present how we can learn through those impacts on the world. We worked together to publish a book as a grade level on changemakers' history. We dedicated this book to us and all the future changemakers of the world. Here are some examples from that book.
An example of a changemaker included in our book is Ida Barnett Wells. She was an activist who fought for
Against.
sexism, racism, and violence. She has also made many people in the Black community witness positivity for their lives. Another example is Ella Baker. She was an activist that has helped contribute to start boycotts. She mentored many other leaders so they could change the world. Even though she experienced racism throughout her life, she still helped improve the world.
How much of an impact ethnic studies has on us? Ethnic studies has a major impact on us because it improves students' critical thinking and self-esteem and learning about all different types of culture. It shows students the importance of equity and justice. It shows people different parts of social, cultural, and political backgrounds. Ethnic studies help students value their own cultural identity while valuing other people's differences. Ethnic studies has a big impact on us. This is because if we didn't learn about ethnic studies, we wouldn't be able to recognize other people's and our cultural identity.
In conclusion, this presentation was about the importance of ethnic studies and the many inspiring leaders of our world. Ethnic studies has taught all of us to respect and learn about all kinds of cultural identities. We hope all students who learn about ethnic studies will be able to have the same experience as all of us, such as having fun, learning about the people who have changed the world, and respecting everybody's ethnic background.
Thank you. That was amazing. I'm going to give my board colleagues a chance to ask questions or make comments. And we'll start on the right.
I just had one question. I was wondering, you spoke about some very important, powerful people, from history. Did anyone notice anything when you put them all together in one book, in your Changemakers book? Did you notice that? I bet a lot of these people have quite a bit in common. Yeah, differences. Well, that must have been an incredible project, and thank you for the presentation. You all spoke very well about it, and the first speaker talked about this as recognizing people who have changed the world, and I hope you recognize that you all have the power to do that, and you'll be a really important part of our society here in Daly City, and I'm glad that this ethnic studies program has been very meaningful for you. Thank you for speaking tonight.
Thank you all for speaking tonight. It was very brave of you to stand up in front of all these adults in the room and be able to speak about your experiences in this amazing program that we have. I'll keep my comments short because we have 5 presentations tonight. But I think you all did a fantastic job. And you never know if you're going to be a leader. You just got to stand up and do it.
I echo my fellow board trustees' statements. You all have shown that you are change makers. It's actually okay to be different, look different, talk different, walk different. You should actually embrace that. That's what makes you you. So every day when you get up and you go to school, and obviously when this book comes out, you're going to look at it and you're going to be like, I was a part of that, and you were able to make a change. And hopefully all the students coming behind you will see that and say that they can be a change maker too. So congratulations again, and thank you for your presentation.
And one more congratulations, and just want to thank your teachers and your parents as well for allowing you to come here tonight, present to us, and let us know about how you've been engaging and learning about different cultures and different perspectives. I really like that you all know that you're by studying ethnic studies, you're also you're learning about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are words that adults use all the time. There's another word too, belonging. And you're showing that by studying about yourself and other cultures, you also are gaining your own power. And we're proud of you. So we have some certificates for you. And Superintendent McCulick, did you have any comments?
Just real quick, we're really proud of the work you've been doing, and I know you've been spending a lot of time learning about yourself, your identity, and just be proud of you and what you do and what you stand for, and congratulations.
Okay, we'll start over there.
All right, so I have a certificate of appreciation for participation in the flag ceremony and special presentation for Ethnic Studies Changemakers at Daniel Webster for Alan Sakel.
All right, I have two certificates of appreciation. The first one for flag ceremony and special presentation is for Angelo Nathan Ebrado. And the second one I have is for Janea Reyes.
Okay, I have a certificate of appreciation for participation in the flag ceremony and special presentation to Nazian Hammond.
Certificate of appreciation for participation in the flag ceremony and special presentation goes to Mia Baria. Okay, thank you. Let's give them all one big round of applause. Okay, thank you. And now we will have board member acknowledgements and commendations. And before we do that, just reminding the students, if you need to go home and do your homework, that's fine. Look, they're out already. Thank you. So Trustee Jordan, we'll start with you.
Just want to thank the students again from Daniel Webster for that presentation. We have a lot on the agenda tonight, so thank you for those that are here to make those presentations, and I look forward to a great meeting.
Thank you to the student presentation. I really appreciated, I got to go to the open house of Ben Franklin with Sandy or Superintendent McCulick this last Thursday last week, and that was great. And then before that, the Student of the Year ceremony, for all of those of you who went, it was a wonderful ceremony. The students were really happy to be there. The families all were very proud of their kids, and so are we. So thank you.
Yeah, I was simply going to say how well received the Student of the Year ceremonies were. It was a real honor to be there. Congratulations to the Students of the Year and to all of the parents, teachers, and especially the organizers of that wonderful event. Thank you.
And I'm going to pass on my comments and pass it over to Superintendent McCulick.
Yes, thank you. So as everyone's mentioned, this is probably the fullest agenda we've had all year. So I think we're all keeping our comments brief. Just to remind families that open house for elementary school is tomorrow night, Thursday. It ranges from 5 to 7:30 p.m. So check with your school to see what time your open house starts.
Okay. Item 6C, persons wishing to address the board. Do we have any speaker cards? Okay. So before we go into general functions, I'd like to pull item 9D from the consent agenda. Are there any other items that board members would like to remove from consent? If not, then we'll just remove item 9D.
Motion to approve the consent agenda with the amendment of 9D moving to general.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously approved. So item 9C, excuse me, yeah, moving fast. 7C, Emerging Leaders Program. Excuse me, 2024-2025 Emerging Leaders Program. The board will discuss sending myself, Board President Shakil Ali, to participate in the 2024-2025 Emerging Leaders Program from September 2024 to May 2025. And just to clarify, overall it's called the Emerging Leaders Program, but they have two cohorts. One is Emerging Leaders and one is for Established Leaders. So I'm actually applying for Established Leaders Program. Well, actually I was nominated, sorry. Do we have any questions, issues, concerns? Or do we have a motion?
I'm concerned you're going to learn too much, and motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
You have two motions
So
and a second.
who I heard a motion from Mr. Sujisaka, and then I heard so which motion is the motion? Mr. Sujisaka, and who seconds?
We'll just say Trustee
Ms.
Jordan,
Jordan,
second. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously approved. Thank you very much. And I just want to say I was nominated by former board trustee Maybelle Manio. So I want to publicly thank her as well. Item 7D, contract between San Mateo County Office of Education and Jefferson Elementary School District regarding participation in the SMCOE Teacher Induction Program 2023 to 2024. The administration recommends approval of the agreement. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously approved. Item 7E, 2024 to 2027 AFT Local 3267, Successor Contract Proposal, Sunshine, and Schedule of Public Hearing. A public hearing will be held on June 12, 2024 on AFT Local number 3267, Successor Contract Proposal. AFT is proposing to open negotiations on articles identified in the attached proposal. The administration recommends acknowledging the receipt of, direct sunshining, and distribution for public review the successor contract proposal for 2024 to 2027 by AFT Local number 3267 as required by the ROTA Act. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously approved. Item 7F, 2024 to 2027 JESD counter proposal to AFT Local number 3267, successor contract proposal, Sunshine, and schedule public hearing. A public hearing will be held on June 12, 2024 on JESD's, counter proposal to AFT Local 3267 for the 2024 to 2027 successor contract. JESD is proposing to open negotiations on Article 2, wages, Article 3, hours of employment, Article 6, health and welfare, Article 11, evaluation, and revising language throughout the document to reflect current law. The administration recommends direct sunshining and announcing time to receive public input on the JESD's counterproposal to AFT Local 3267 for the 2024 to 2027 successor contract as required by the ROTA Act. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved unanimously. Item 7G, 2024-2025 CSEA Chapter Number 233, Contract Renewal Proposal Sunshine and Schedule a Public Hearing. A public hearing will be held on June 12, 2024 to receive public input on the CSEA Chapter Number 233, Contract Renewal Proposal for the 2024-2025 school year. CSEA is proposing to open negotiations on Article 5, wages, Article 6, health and welfare, and Article 8, hours and conditions of employment as identified in the attached proposal. The administration recommends setting a hearing date, acknowledging the receipt of, direct sunshining, and distribution for public review, the contract proposal for 2024-2025 by CSEA, Chapter Number 233, as required by the ROTA Act. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
First and a second. Do we have, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously approved. Yeah.
7H.
Item 7H, 2024 to 2025 JESD counter proposal to CSEA Chapter Number 233, Contract Renewal Proposal Sunshine and Schedule a Public Hearing. A public hearing will be held on June 12, 2024 to receive public input on JESD's counter proposal to CSEA Chapter Number 233, Contract Renewal Proposal for the 2024 to 2025 school year. JESD is proposing to open negotiations on Article 5, wages, Article 6, health and welfare, and Article 8, hours and conditions of employment. The administration recommends setting a hearing date, acknowledging the receipt of, direct sunshining, and distribution for public review, the contract proposal for 2024-2025 by CSEA, Chapter Number 233, as required by the ROTA Act. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously approved. Item 8C, Local Control Accountability Plan Update. Information from Pamela Scott, Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. Ms. Scott will provide an update on the development of the 2024 to 2027 three-year LCAP goals and actions.
Okay, good evening. So I'm here tonight to share a brief overview of our next Local Control Accountability Plan, also known as LCAP. This is a living document that is rewritten every 3 years. This year, we are closing out our current LCAP and preparing for our next 3-year plan. We have spent much of this year engaging with our educational partners in order to develop a plan that is representative of all voices. Between December and January, district and site administrators met with over 50 families through school site council, PTA, and parent coffee meetings. Attendees provided feedback in the following categories: academic needs, social, emotional needs, physical environments, and parent engagement. Between November and April, district and site administrators met with approximately 150 elementary and middle school students at their respective sites. Feedback was gathered on the following topics: feelings about school, description of ideal classroom environment, learning strategies, and relationships with peers and adults. In February, school site staff provided feedback through a survey administered during a staff meeting. Topics included improving student learning outcomes, academic success for language learners, ongoing staff development, school climate and culture, and parent community engagement. In March, we met with San Mateo County Office of Education to review the LCAP process. Our collaboration centered on addressing chronic absenteeism, suspension rates, and academic progress within targeted student groups as a priority in our LCAP. In April, our administrative council provided input on our goals, actions, and metrics. And in May, district administration met with representatives from both the certificated and classified unions to gather feedback on proposed LCAP goals, actions, and metrics. A few key trends from the engagement sessions include from staff to provide additional resources for English language learners, to design professional development that encourages collaboration, to establish a clear multi-tiered system of support with meaningful data and easily accessible intervention tools, and to continue to provide PBIS training and support. From our families, they would like us to provide parents with tools and tips in their home language in order to support learning at home, to create opportunities for students to socialize in less structured environments to help students build healthy peer relationships, to support elementary to middle school transition for both students and families, and to schedule parent nights on relevant topics such as vaping, fighting, academics, behavior, and online behavior. And from our students, they would like for us to foster an understanding and balance between relationship building and content teaching, to facilitate open discussions and community circles to address concerns effectively, to switch early dismissal day to Friday, and to make learning interesting and engaging to capture students' attention. So recently, Superintendent McCulloch articulated a student achievement goal that by 2030, 80% of our students will be proficient in both English language arts and math. And this goal has been the foundation of our new 3-year LCAP. Our current LCAP includes 5 broad goals. When beginning to build the 24-27 LCAP, we researched goals developed by both local districts and districts outside of our county who are similar to ours, yet achieving stronger outcomes. Based on this research, we narrowed our focus from 5 goals to 3, 1 broad goal and 2 focus goals. Our new goals are written with a level of simplicity so that they are memorable. Goal 1, maximize student success in both academics and social emotional well-being through an inclusive and coordinated system of support. This broad goal includes a focus on our MTSS multi-tiered system of support and includes training for new teachers, standards-aligned materials and instruction, targeted instructional groupings, and intervention platforms such as iReady. LCAP goal number 2 is by June 2027, academic performance in both ELA and math will meet or exceed 70% proficiency. This will help us get to Superintendent McCulloch's goal by 2030 of 80%. This focus goal includes professional learning for all staff, teacher collaboration during early release Wednesdays, technology devices for all students, additional staffing at each site to enhance classroom instruction through small group support, and enrichment opportunities such as ethnic studies, youth cinema project, middle school electives, and lunchtime clubs. And goal 3, by June 2027, positive school climate indicators will meet or exceed 90% favorability. This focus goal includes attendance clerks, translation services, counselors, PBIS, restorative practices, mental health contracts, nurses, librarians, transportation for homeless and foster youth, and after-school athletics. The next steps in our LCAP update process: on June 12th, there will be a public hearing in the board meeting. Our goal is that the board adopt our new LCAP at the June 26th meeting so that we can submit our approved LCAP plan to San Mateo County Office of Ed by June 30th. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Do we have any questions? And if so, we'll start from Trustee Rashba.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, for the presentation. I am encouraged about all of the feedback that you got from students, from parents, from staff, from administration, and staff, and looked like some really good ideas, specific ideas included, within what you submitted. I do have two concerns. The first is around the goal of getting to 80% proficiency in math and ELA on CASP. I just pulled up the top performing school districts in California on the CASP, and they are, the top in ELA, 88.7%. Number 7 got 81.1%. Math, the top is 85.9%. Only 3 districts scored above 80%, and they're districts with a lot more resources than we do. I think we should go for it, but I just want to be clear-eyed about it and don't want to put down a goal that's pie in the sky. Do you feel like we have the right interim steps to really get there and reach that goal?
Yes, that's the hope. I think there's a lot of variables that come into play, but I feel really confident that the work that we have done this year is going to set us up for success. CASP results are coming out as we speak, so I'm anxious to see if what we have done has made some growth. But I do think that it's going to be a stretch goal, but I think we need that.
If I may add too, I mean, I'm the one that set that goal, 80%. I think we should set high goals, because if you're going to set, high expectations, you'll strive for that. And even it's that saying, reach for the moon, you'll still hit a star. Reach for the stars, you'll still hit whatever. But you want to set high goals so that you can reach for them. And so even if we get to 65%, that's still better than where we are now. So I would rather us go for 80%, because that's really, what we're hoping to achieve by 2030. And if we need to adjust, we can adjust as we go. But I think in this first plan, I think we should go for where we hope to achieve. And then as we progress through, we can always make adjustments. But I would rather set the bar high and then work from there. That's my recommendation.
Thank you. I just want to bring my other concern, which is the omission of community engagement within our LCAP. And I am all for streamlining and simplifying, but I think community engagement is really important, especially because I do not feel that within the last LCAP we have succeeded in getting our community more engaged. I think that there's unfortunately kind of a disconnect between, what we're doing in the public schools and the community. And we are doing so much. The last presentation that we had at the last board meeting from Stephanie Martinez about all of the services, that our schools are providing. The community schools grant, we had the presentation by Luisa Santos. And so I think it is really important to include that as a goal to establish stronger relations with the community. I'm just interested why it was left
It is
out.
an action item under the third goal. So it's still a focus point. Every action item, though, needs a metric to determine if that action has been effective or ineffective to meet the goal. So we tried to really consolidate the amount of actions we have so that we are able to effectively measure them. And just because something isn't specifically outlined in LCAP doesn't necessarily mean it's not supported or funded. So community engagement and inviting our families onto campus to support student learning and to be included and connected is still a priority. It's just not articulated as its own goal.
Thank you for the presentation. I love the conciseness. I guess I have two questions. So on the topic of family and community engagement, what are some of the ways that we are going to be able to give resources to our staff, specifically like administrators and counselors, to be able to support families of different language backgrounds?
So we have translation services in our schools actively. In fact, we just increased the budget amount to support those services, providing in-the-moment translation with either real people or via the phone. So that I think really helps our families feel connected in a language that they speak at home. And then continuing outreach, I know all our staff, especially around attendance, that's a big area of focus. Outreach to families to make sure they understand the value of coming to school, and then providing opportunities both during the school day, before and after, for them to be on campus to connect. Just at our back to school nights, right? They have lots of, or open house, they have their food trucks, any opportunities for them to get together and socialize in an informal capacity as well builds connectivity.
Thank you. And then my second question is about family liaisons. And so now that we are shifting gears to MTSS teachers, how is that role of family liaison going to be continued, or where are those responsibilities going to go?
So we still have district family. Did you want to speak?
Yes, I can answer that. So I believe next year we're actually might be expanding on the family liaisons, but as it stands now, we're continuing to provide those services in conjunction with the MTSS and ELD teachers.
Excellent. Well, then my last comment is I actually appreciate how you limited the goals down to 3. Less is more, and we hope that the less that we try to focus on, the more we can accomplish in the fewer things. So thank you.
I echo my fellow board trustee sentiments. I have one question about the staff feedback on the having a clear multi-tiered support system and meaningful data and with accessible intervention tools. I know Schoolytics is a part of the actions or the highlights for Goal 1. And I know we talked about it previously and we had some issues. Has that been worked out? Is everyone trained and have access to it? When they see something that maybe is not going in the right direction, what are the steps that are being taken to address immediately? That's like a multiple question. Sorry.
I can do.
Well, for one thing, the Schoolytics, we're in the process of putting all the system in place, all the data. So we will be training. And then iReady is really where the teachers will see the actionable data. And they have been trained, or we're in the process of training all, but we have been training throughout the year. Do you want to add to that?
Sure. So iReady is a new assessment platform that will replace a current assessment program, FastBridge for grades 3 through 8. And with this platform comes a personalized learning opportunity for our students. So they take a diagnostic and then the program creates, right, a pathway for them to close the gap, learning gap. It's research and evidence-based that if students are on the personalized learning platform for 45 minutes a week, they will meet their stretch goal. So we'll close the gap. So our focus is going to be for 2 years, really adhering to that model to see, right, the effectiveness of this program. So that data will be fed into Schoolytics along with attendance data, state assessment, other local assessment data. So it's all in one
Aggregated,
location.
essentially. Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate the hard work and great presentation.
Yeah, thank you. So just looking at the feedback from the staff feedback highlights, it says provide additional resources for English language learners. What do you know what kind of resources the staff is asking for?
I think the most challenging group of students are newcomer students. So we have resources available for staff, but making sure that they have the training needed to utilize those resources, and also an understanding of how we evaluate performance of students who are learning English, because they're not evaluated against the same standards as English-only students.
Parent family feedback highlights. Excuse me. It says provide tools and tips in their home language in order to support learning at home. Is that not being done in our district? Do we provide?
This was in reference to homework that's going home. So I think parents would like some communication in their home language on how best to support their students with that homework task.
So I thought we adopted kind of like a no homework policy, or is
No.
that still no?
The
Okay.
homework policy still stands. That has not been changed.
All right. So also in the parent family feedback, it says they would like to create opportunities for students to socialize in less structured environments to help students build healthy peer relationships. Do you know what they were? Okay.
Yeah. So opportunities outside of the school structure where students can connect around a passion or hobby or something, some common way to connect. So in our middle schools, electives might provide that opportunity. Next year with the new middle school schedule, students will have more voice and choice and be able to choose an enrichment opportunity that connects to a passion, and that will help them meet other students of that same passion. And same with our elementary school. So starting those clubs, perhaps affinity groups, but creating ways for students to get to know each other outside of the classroom structure.
I think that's all the questions that I had. Let me see. Yeah, that's all the questions that I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I just add, you may notice a placemat on your table, and it's from CSBA, and it was just a way to kind of like clearly identify our roles and responsibilities. I thought with this new LCAP plan, it kind of fits in, you know, where the board's roles are, where the administration roles are. So I thought this might be a helpful tool to reference throughout board meetings. So we'll just have this as a placemat. So I just wanted to point that out, and that was something new that we started this year or today. Thank you.
Could I just ask one question about process? So will there be further opportunity to provide feedback on the LCAP? Is that the next meeting? I know there'll be public comment.
Public comment can be made. It's pretty finalized at this point because we received input from parents and students and staff. So it is, the county office is reviewing the draft to give us any feedback before we then have it go to the board. But so if you have any initial feedback, get it to us quickly because we do need to have it approved by the county by the end of June and have it ready for the public hearing on June 12th as really the final copy. So.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Item 8D, Special Education Program Study. Dr. James Adams, Director of Special Education, will provide an overview of the comprehensive review of the district's special education services, as well as recommendations to support effective programming.
Hi, good evening, board members, Assistant Superintendent McCulloch. So we have just going to give a brief overview of some of the study information that we have here. So we can go to the next slide. Oh, there's mine. Sorry. Thank you. All right. So basically, there was a special ed study that was done to sort of look at some information here in our district to help guide us in the next directions that we're trying to do. And so one of the things I've shared before here at the board is that we do have an overall decline in general education, but our special ed enrollment is not declining. That's not just here in Jefferson, it's across the country. One data point I always give, 1 in 35 students are with autism right now in the United States. So there's a huge influx of students that have more special needs and more significant special needs within the country. So overall, you know, the staff, so what happens, they interviewed all our staff within special ed, also administrators here. Staff reported to the consultants a spirit of resilience and committed to the students and families they serve. They reported they're happy with the district and its support of special education. Some of the things that the staff were requesting was increased sense of ownership among principals with regard to special education, increased visibility of special education director, me, Consistent communication to sites from special education department. So some of the things, once we got this, we implemented pretty quickly. There was an increased integration between special ed and gen ed. Superintendent McCulloch made sure that and Pam Scott made sure that all of the special education administrators were attending administrative council. That wasn't always the case before, and so we're all there together sitting in the room, so that was implemented this year. Also this year, Ed Services generally, but specifically for me too, we did site visits to all over the district, and we kept track of that and talked about that, of our learnings and things that we had seen, so that was implemented. We also talked about, we have meeting in a memo throughout the district. We developed a handbook and created a meeting in a memo type of system where anyone in the district can access a handbook about our ability to look at our procedures and policies. So from principals to teachers, gen ed teachers, anyone can take a look at those policies to see what we have. So that's completely transparent for people. We also started to look at the number of adults in each special ed classroom, especially our special day classes, as well as you've probably been seeing some of our behavioral technicians and other types of behavioral supports in our special day classes. They also talked about us to build a capacity of how to train people on more behavioral supports for kids in gen ed and special ed. They also talked about expanding and relooking at our preschool SDC program. We serve kids from 3 starting in special education and creating more variation and opportunities for them. So one of the things we started looking at is trying to work with each classroom having 3 6-hour SKIAs in each SDC classroom. What's happening now is some might be 3 hours, some might be 5 hours. There's overlap. People needed extra people because of overlap. So one of the recommendations was to have them there, which also creates an opportunity for us to do training. If paraprofessionals are here, we're able to do training on Wednesdays. Our behaviorists and our school psychologists can do training with them. So that's one of the ideas that we have plans for implementing next year. Also, they talked about adding a BCBA, that's a board behavioral analyst in our district. We have one school psychologist in our district that is a BCBA. We had posted that job last year as a school psychologist BCBA. We didn't get any applicants. They're very hard to find. So we are put together a job description for BCBAs. They do not have credentials, so they're classified employees. So that was one of the things that we put together. We can talk more about, I guess you can talk about that more later tonight, but that was one of the things that came up about that. And we also have expanded our continuum of services in preschool. So we're having kids who get assessed through our preschool program we're offering placement in gen ed preschool. So they're in Lisa Zamiga's preschool programs throughout the district in gen ed classrooms. And then we have our inclusion specialist who's a preschool teacher who provides related services to them. Speech and language also provides services to them. So it adds another level of support for students who may not need a special day class, but who need a little bit more than just speech and language services. So one of the things that we're also doing is updating. We had a process that was a little antiquated to determine if a student or a classroom needed additional classroom support. SKIAs is what it was called. We changed that now to best practices behavior instructional needs assessment, a BINA, and we also expanded it. It used to be the school psychologists were the only people that sat on that team. Now we expanded the team to include teachers, psychologists, speech pathologists, and administrators so that we have a broader view about the needs that might be happening around that. We're also planning more professional development, like I said, between the SKIAs and the special ed teachers, not just training the SKIAs, it's also training the special ed teachers and how to work with their SKIAs. And we identified that we did work on that this year, so it's a continuing need that we're going to continue doing. We're also being mindful of right-sizing our special ed department. So we did have a resignation of one of our program coordinators. That is going to be a savings. We're reducing from 3 to 2 program coordinators in the fall. So those are some of the high overview of what was put into that report. Any questions? Thank you, I didn't see that.
All right, thank you, Dr. Adams. We'll start on my left for any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. The only question that I have is there's a statement here that says trying to maintain class size of 14. Obviously, with our spec classes not having declining enrollment, that seems like it would be hard. So how do we, I guess, hope to ensure consistent class sizes to ensure that our teachers are able to handle the students that they have in their classroom?
Yeah, that's a great question. We had made a recommendation. We're actually having 2 more SDC classes next year. We're expanding to that. But as we all know, it's very difficult to find special ed teachers. So we make our best intentions, like we shoot for the stars and we try, but that's why it's a hope to keep class sizes around that level. If we're fully staffed, we'd be definitely within that rubric. That's really the crux of the problem.
Perfect. I guess I do have a secondary question to that. And I guess because it is volatile and you never know, how do we ensure that our teachers do not get burnt out? I mean, we want to ensure, and obviously we don't want a bunch of resignations. It's hard to get those teachers into these classrooms. And so how do we ensure, because we are unable to confirm all the time that we'll have a consistent class size, ensuring that they get what they need from a support standpoint so they don't feel overwhelmed with, the classroom?
Yeah, I think they answered that question. They want more training and support around behavioral interventions. They wanted to look at SKIA assignments in a different way, which is one of the things we're doing, and continued professional development around those areas, just generally, and having their site administrator more involved. That's something that they said on their own.
There we go.
Those were the 3 things that they brought up that I think address what we're trying to move forward with, to keep people from feeling burned out and feel heard. It's
Perfect.
hard work.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, first of all, thank you for the presentation. I feel like my questions are going to be pretty similar, if not just, I think, more specific. So in the staff feedback part of your presentation, it says staff are asking for principals to take ownership. And again, I think you kind of answered it just now, but I wanted to know what exactly that ownership is supposed to look like.
Yeah, I think, I wasn't in part of those things, and it wasn't spelled out perfectly in the report, but I imagine from what teachers tell me is our site administrators sit in most of the IEPs as the LEA. They're the representative, the administrator at that meeting, and being an active participant to help solve problems. We have a large number of SDCs in our district, a lot of training. We're trying to also think about training our principals, which is going to be one of the things on our ideas for next year, to train principals to better sit at meetings, to understand what's happening at meetings, to ask the right questions during meetings, because we're running at some level. In the past, these used to be students perhaps in county level programs, right? So it's a learning thing for everyone, for teachers as well as for administrators. So that's what I suspect is going on, that there's big problems that we need to talk about at IEPs. It's not as simple just signing off and having more input around those areas.
Thank you. So along the same lines of staffing, so how does the district plan on supporting staff in classrooms such as SKIAs when, again, we are in staffing shortages? How are we getting more staff?
Yeah, well, actually, when we started putting together numbers with Mr. Valenti, I think we have enough staff if people want to go, for paraprofessionals I'm talking about. It's just reorganizing how people are being used, what their hours will be. Of course, offering all of that to everyone will also create more income for them, to be honest, more stability of a workforce. Some of our 3-hour people might have other jobs, but maybe they don't want another job, right? So maybe they can move to 6 hours. They can be a stable workforce, get training. We build capacity. That's the other idea, was there to have our SKIAs in the classroom be able to provide the behavioral intervention, so we don't need behavioral technicians from outside agencies. So building that within our own district. So I think that part, it's more about teachers. That's, a nationwide shortage that gets complicated for us. But we have some strategies that we're working on with that too.
And then where are we getting the PD resources for the information? Because I definitely understand that, that training is a big thing. So what are some of those sources that we're going to be looking into?
Yeah, so my hope is we have our one BCBA. Hopefully we get another BCBA. The BCBAs in our district should be the leaders, I feel, in trying to provide training and support around behavioral interventions. Many of our students don't have language, right? And so they're trying to communicate through their behavior and trying to help teams understand what's their behavior, what is their communicative intent, and then being able to create strategies around that. And I think we've done spot training here and there, but to be able to do that in a systematic way with paraprofessionals, and then we're planning to have overlap between paraprofessionals and their SDC teachers. all their special ed teachers, because just because people know things doesn't mean that they know how to work together. So then the next step is getting people to work together and practice working together. So we're really looking forward to that type of PD for the year.
And the last one is just a comment. I actually am looking forward to seeing how our principals / new administrators are going to be trained on how to participate in IEPs more actively. So thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for the presentation. So I'm curious of whether this special education study got any feedback from parents and families.
It did not. That was not part of the scope of that study.
Okay. As special education director, what is your sense of how parents and families are satisfied with our, services within special education, and how do you ascertain that feedback from them?
That's a really good question. I think it's through the IEP process is where I think about it. Most of our families, we have a very low litigious district. We have very little problems in terms of not finding solutions with families. So I think that also creates some trust between what we're doing and not. We also have families that come to our IEPs. I have to be honest, now that we have Zoom, we're allowed to, or Google Meets for our IEPs, many, many more families are able to participate. In the past, when they needed to come on campus, miss work to come to an IEP, and some of our students need multiple IEPs throughout the year, and they're showing up in greater numbers. So we have higher parent participation at our IEPs. So that to me would indicate more feelings of positivity around the process of what they're getting in special education. Yeah.
Thank you. I had the same question that Trustee Sujisaka had about that statement about ownership amongst the principals. It's kind of confusing. I mean, what do they mean by ownership?
I don't really know exactly. It was just a statement that was placed in there from people that talked about. But one of the things that we have been saying here for many years, and I want to reboot, is all of our children are gen ed students first. They're all of our kids.
That's right.
Right? So they're all our students within our program. Some kids have special needs that need specialized instruction or services. So making sure that maybe some teachers felt that they weren't always felt as being part of the school community. I'm not sure, not being part of, it's being seen as on the side or different. So really trying to keep reinforcing. I know Superintendent McCulloch has said that so many times, all of our kids are gen ed students first, and we're changing that way of communicating. And I'm hoping that filters down to our classroom teachers. I'll be sure to continue talking to teachers about, do they feel supported on their campus with their administrators? I don't even know what campus it came from. It just was a general statement there. It could have been from one campus. I don't know, right? They didn't give me that type of information. But that's generally what I think perhaps could be felt. And as a former school psychologist, sometimes as a special educator, you feel kind of separate from the general education things that are going on. So I'm just surmising what somebody may have said. I don't really know specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then it says consistent communication to sites from the special education department, and you mentioned the SPED handbook. Is there anything else you're doing? One, and then two, is there a way to put the SPED handbook on our website?
That's a good question. So the first one is, I think having the special ed administrators, myself and the program coordinators at AC, we've been able to do presentations, have talks, directly communicate about changes or things that we need to do. There's still a lot more to do. And also, like I said, we're already planning for our retreat for our administrators and trying to understand what we can do as a district to support our principals around special ed. Our handbook in terms of being on the website, that's something I need to think about. There's some real internal things there that I'm not sure how applicable it is. We do have, parent rights and things like that on our website, but it's really fine details. Like if, I know Mr. Ali, you know about this, but it's SACE related things, how to fill out forms, how to complete documents, how to do state testing. I mean, there's very, very specific detailed things in there that IEP team members would need to know. I just don't know if that would be, useful or even, but I'm happy to share it and let you think about that. But I just don't think it's very applicable for anyone. I don't know if it makes sense, to be honest. It's really, you need some training and guidance around that to be able to understand some of the things that are in there. Service tracking, for example, is in there, which isn't even related to parents, about how they have to track all their services that they give for students, things like that.
I guess it's just when it says consistent communication to sites. I mean we don't know what consistent means.
That's true.
Right.
Well, I think in the past, we had a handbook, but it was kind of on the side, printed copy or in Google Drive, and wasn't always updated. And so by moving it into this meeting in a memo type thing, people see it. They see any new changes at the top. There's hyperlinks within it, so they can go click down, so they can find things more quickly. So that was our idea. That was an attempt to create more consistent communication, that you can open it up and say, what am I supposed to do for state testing? Click and it goes there. Doesn't mean everyone follows it, but I'm just saying that the information's there for people to see.
So it's a digital handbook.
Yes.
Okay, that was actually my first question and I didn't ask it. So thank you.
It's digital.
I was actually going to ask, so I know Ms. Scott provides us with a weekly newsletter. I'm wondering if maybe that would be something that could be, again, I'm not sure if there are weekly updates, but just like something consistent along those lines sounds like something like what they're asking for.
Do you want to answer that, or I can?
We do have a section, right, for Dr. Adams to contribute.
Yes.
In the
So,
newsletter.
And then does that go to staff? Because I think I'm wondering if they're seeing. Oh, so maybe they just. Yeah.
Since I sit under since I sit under ed services, that there's a place there for special education.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
So the structure is there. We just need to remind them where to go to get it, the information.
Yes, and multiple things. So we talk about it at our staff meetings. We show it in the handbook, and that's why we're trying to close the loop around administrators, like making sure that we're continuing to provide training and support around that as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, great. All the way to the next page. We're doing really good. Item 8H, Jefferson Elementary School District After School Program Updates. Ms. Jennifer LaRock, Program Director of Expanded Learning and Staff Supports, will provide updates on the after-school programs at all sites.
Thank you. Good evening. Jennifer LaRock, Program Director here at Jefferson. I'm excited to present to you our after-school program offerings at all of our sites. I like to mention, first of all, that even though it's just me presenting here, Lisa Zamiga and Maria Azar are a huge support in all of our after-school programming. As you know, we have 14 school sites, and prior to 2022, only school sites that were awarded the ACES grant, the After School Educational and Safety Grant, received free after-school daycare. With the ELOP grant award in 2022, it was the idea of the superintendent to offer free daycare at all 14 of our school sites, regardless of their ACES status, making aftercare equitable to all of our families at all of our sites. We do have some wonderful community partners that we contract with to provide aftercare at our sites. We call all these after-school providers base providers, and they are the staff on site from dismissal to 5:30 to 6 p.m. One of the advantages of ELOP grant is the ability to have it be commingled with our ACES grant. Essentially, this means that we can use our ELOP funds to enrich our ACES programs that are already established. Continuing our vision of equitable opportunities to all of our sites, in addition to our base providers, we have contracted with enrichment providers to infuse into our after-school program. This year, all sites receive the support of their base provider, along with a variety of enrichment providers, including CAM EDU, who presented just a few weeks ago, La Garza, United Basketball, Leap Art, and Mad Science. These enrichment classes were on all of our campuses for 8-week cycles, and they met with all of our students that were in the after-school program. Students have thoroughly enjoyed these additional enrichment classes, and we actually saw an increase in attendance in the after-school programs when some of these enrichment classes were on campus. Because we now have commingled our ELOP funds with our ACES grant, there are some stipulations that we need to follow in order to stay in compliance with the ELOP grant. And one of those is that the unduplicated students have priority into the program. So a student that is homeless, foster youth, socially economically disadvantaged, or an English language learner are enrolled first into our after-school program. And unfortunately, this has led to a few wait lists for families that are not considered unduplicated. But we're hopeful that we have found a solution to this, which I'm going to share in just a couple of slides. We do average about 100 students in each of our sites in the after-school program across the district. I'd like to share just a quick clip of what our aftercare program looks like. This is I'll let it go ahead.
Favorite part about AYRP is, I say, is like the community and like just being able to hang around the kids. It's just such a cool job. That
we have to get away. It's also fun for me. When I get to run some things or like play for with kids and they have fun with baseball.
connecting with the kids for sure. Just learning what they go through and just like really being there for them when they need. So.
Initiative. It's about how they're going to do their homework. They should do it themselves and they're going to get it done.
Most of it's usually outside with the kids, playing with them, getting to know them on a personal level.
My favorite part of the school program is how we have art class and we use the math science.
But it's to plan outside, play with your friends, basketball.
Here's my best memory of AYRP is not necessarily just one memory, but more just meeting all the kids. So I'm just getting to know the kids and getting to know all their personalities and actually become friends with the kids was fun to me.
Like a family type of thing over here. Everybody got each other's back. Everybody's cool.
My favorite part about this school, I would say the kids. I think the kids are very cool. Their personalities are really cool.
I just love making a positive impact on these kids and as they grow.
That was AYRP. They were one of our base providers. And what I was hoping was going to come through in the video was the connections that the staff can make with the students. And so when we choose an after-school provider, we don't only pay attention to the contract cost, but also the quality of the program, the staffing standards, and the leadership within the program. This is a super small snapshot of our parent survey about after-school programming. I actually really love getting this information because they can easily become goals for our program next year. Though I'd love to only share the positive happenings of after school, I wouldn't be showing you the full picture without sharing with you where we have room for improvement. My guess is you, like me, have received a few emails about after-school programs from families in regards to some frustrations. This year, I have identified one major area where we can improve on and have already begun conversations for possible solutions. I think our most vocal families are frustrated about being on a wait list. I find that once I speak to these families and I explain to them about the ELOP and ACES stipulations, most understand, but they would prefer transparent communication about the stipulations and say that that would have relieved many anxieties around the issue. Many parents at the non-ACES sites have expressed interest in paying for a spot in after-school program if that particular site has been maxed out with unduplicated students. Our contract this year did not allow for additional spaces, but you'll notice tonight in the 24-25 contracts, we have created 100 JESD ELOP-funded spaces. In addition, we added 20 spots for families on the wait list who would wish to pay for after-school programming. The after-school programs were designed for families that needed care from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. And this time frame originated from the ACES grant guidelines. When we opened aftercare free to families at all sites with ELOP, the vision remained the same. However, we're finding that at one site in particular, where there has been a wait list all year, the majority of the students were being picked up by 4:30. Unfortunately, this was not the vision of how the program was to be used. In addition, the program needs to staff for the full caseload of kids at 3 o'clock, and by 4:30, the program was way overstaffed. Unfortunately, the families that did need care from 3 to 6 were left on the wait list. So, we're currently working on a solution for this for next year. We're creating the idea of a separately funded Power Hour program at this particular site. This will be a program that's separate from ELOP and will only run from dismissal until 4:30. This will allow families that just need a small amount of time covered in the afternoon to have a program, as well as open up spaces on the wait list for those who need a fully funded ELOP coverage from 3 to 6. And finally, we'll be looking into our after-school spaces and ensuring that we are accommodating the maximum amount of students in an after-school-based program while still being very cognizant of the teachers who need to continue to prep in their classroom after the students have left, and making sure that alternate programs on campus have a room as well. So looking forward to fall of 2024, we have enrollments opening at all of our sites soon. Many are already open today, and the rest will be open shortly. All registration links will be active in the next superintendent's newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you. If we have any questions, we'll start from Trustee Rashba.
Thank you for the presentation, Ms. LaRock. This is terrific. I'll say first, just from my perspective as a parent who had 2 children in the after-school program, of just how important and meaningful that these programs are. I really think that my kids were often most excited, by what they were doing with those after-school programs, and truly the staff relationships are really strong with students. So I think it's great. I think that I'm excited about the solutions that you have presented tonight. Thank you for thinking creatively, for listening to parents and thinking outside the box. I think that's really important, and it sounds like almost everyone within the district will be able to access after-school care, which is great. I guess the only question I had is, with several different base providers, I realize we need multiple providers to cover all the different sites. How do you ensure consistency, some level of consistency, even though all the sites are different in after-school care across the district?
Clarification. Consistency with the same after-school provider, or what's happening within each base provider?
What's happening that each base provider is not necessarily doing the same program, but having a same overall level of quality of service.
Sure. Part of the ACES grant qualifications in order to have a contract through the ACES fund means that there are some standards that they need to present within their program daily. And this is where I thanked Marie and Lisa at the beginning, where they actually go out to the school sites as do a quality check on the programs. I do the non-ACES sites and they do the ACES sites, and we kind of use the same checkoff list to ensure all the sites are doing what they have said that they would do within their contract. And all the contracts are quite similar with their daily routine. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mrs. R, for the presentation. I have 4 questions. And actually, you may answer one of them in one of them. Well, this is actually more one for Superintendent McCulick. Some of the videos like that, we get these at our school board meetings. I'm wondering, do we put those on our website for potential families who are coming into our district to see the amazing work that we do here?
Every presentation is linked to the agenda, so anyone can click on it and go to the presentation and see videos.
So I'm wondering if it's on our website, I think more just because, prospective students coming in the district, parents probably won't go to the board meeting, click on the presentation and then go there. I'm wondering.
Do you mean as an advertisement for the after-school programs?
Or even just like on the front page, like, hey, these are some of the amazing programs we have at our district.
Yeah, we can consider that. Sure.
Yeah. So you're off the hook on that one.
Okay. Thank you.
The options that you are providing, will that cover most, all, and even more than the wait list that you currently have? If it was now, just assuming the wait list now.
If we go under the assumptions of we will enroll what we did this year, it will take care of all the wait lists. Yes.
Okay, that took care of two of the questions. And then for students who are partially and versus fully utilizing the programs, do we have any data on which students are fully utilizing versus how many are partially?
When you say partially utilizing, you mean like 4:30 pickup?
Yeah.
Percentage of students or reasons why they're leaving?
I think both might be good, but do we have that data?
I don't have reasons why they're leaving. I can quickly get the data on the percentage of students leaving, but at this one particular site, it is close to 50%.
Awesome. Thank you so much. No further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Lark, for the presentation. I have a couple of questions as well. You talked about the site that was going to require this power hour, solution. Are we going to be monitoring the other sites to ensure that if they start to go through this same, early dismissal, early leaving, that they maybe also have the option for a power hour? I ask this question because I am also a parent that has a child in an after school program. And I noticed that, number one, the after school program tells the parents if they come early, like, hey, unfortunately, this is the program hours. We need you here for a certain time. And so we do have a lot of times where the parents are just standing outside or sitting in their cars waiting for 30 minutes. And I want to make sure that we don't, that's not the norm. They know in advance, the communication is advanced. And if that is a need at that school, instead of having the parents wait, that we expand in more than just the school that you mentioned.
Certainly. I love to start small, see how it works, work out the kinks, and then if needed, to expand it. It hasn't come up at other sites, but hearing what you're saying, that parents are waiting in their car for the 6 o'clock pickup, it's certainly a point that we can consider. I will say one of the challenging areas we're finding about that power hour is staffing it. It's hard to staff an hour and a half position. So how we can expand that position into like a 3-hour position would make it easier to staff. But I'm thinking that we're going to have a good response to starting this at one site, and would love to survey the parents to see if that is a need at additional sites once we understand the ins and outs of how Power Hour will work.
Perfect. I appreciate that statement. And the reason why I asked is because I'm very active. I'm a little bit of a helicopter parent, so I talk to the parents while I'm picking up, and a lot of them are telling me that their children are also doing other things outside of after school. So this day they have math tutoring, or another day they have swim class or swim lessons, right? And so they may not need every day pickup at 4:30, but there are certain days where they do need pickup at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, right? And so the flexibility, I think, is important, but I really think it's more so that communication up front, how we communicate with them before they enroll in the program, and keeping up with that communication. I did realize that, and this is a comment, that with the after school program at the beginning of the year, there wasn't a lot of communication, and then the middle of the year, there was just consistent communication. So ensuring that is also consistent, I think that communication is going to be key to easing the anxiety and the confusion around that. So with that being said, I do have a question. There was, I think in here, something about, and I'm going to go to the, parent survey. I am well informed about the after school program schedule of my child. So what I will say as a parent is I am getting a newsletter now from the after school program, but do I know the schedule weekly and when the enrichments are coming? Not necessarily. So again, back to that communication. And I did see that some people said disagree. It wasn't a lot. But then again, not 100% of people are going to take that survey, right? And so if we could maybe monitor that, I would really appreciate it. And then I guess the last thing I was going to ask is around consistency of the program and not necessarily on what they're doing from site to site, but making sure, and this is something that I asked last year, it's probably on the record in video, where every year we would get a new provider for a school site. And so, for example, at the school that my daughter is at now, she has champions, but she had champions before the pandemic. And then they moved away from champions and went to someone else, and then champions came back. And so I know that champions is coming back next year for the school site she's at. How is that consistent across the other schools?
To your point, Ms. McCulloch did approach us last year requesting for the 2 years at each school site, a minimum of 2 years for each provider to be at the school site. There was a little bit of change post-pandemic because of staffing. And so we did have to move providers around because there just wasn't staffing to fill the spaces. But moving forward, the request has been made that every provider is at a site for 2 years. And going into contracts, the providers know that as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you all covered my questions. I did like the idea of the power hour, but then listening to this, what you said about it's going to be hard to find someone who wants to work an hour and a half position. So what are your thoughts about that again? Could you?
Yes, we've thought about that. So we will extend the power hour to kindergarten. Kindergarten gets released at 1:45. So we would be staffing someone from 1:45 to 4:30, making it a little bit more enticing for someone to take that position.
And then I thought, so did you say that we have teachers that need to stay after 6 to prep?
No, maybe we do. I don't know. I didn't say that though. I was referring to one of the comments that came up through the parent surveys is space on campus, and administrators and base providers were saying we only are allowed X amount of classrooms. And parents were saying, well, how can you fit them all during the school day and not after school? And so my point is that not all classroom teachers leave their classroom at 3 o'clock. And so they're on a rotating schedule as to when the after school comes into their classroom and when they get to stay in their classroom. So just being cognizant of the staff's needs as well as the aftercare needs.
So I want to say thank you to those teachers that are staying after school to prep. Thank you, Ms. LaRock.
So if I may, the next 4 agenda items are approving the contracts that she was referencing. And item 8K, I have one correction when we get to that.
Okay. All right, before we get to this, and thank you so much, Ms. LaRock. I just want to make a comment that, these are some high amounts that we're approving possibly tonight. And I appreciate Ms. LaRock. However, I still would like to see people from these agencies come and talk to us. And I don't know if any other board members agree, but.
I mean, I definitely agree. I think that is also something I think we're asking for more for in general when we review things. I know like cafeteria, we want to do that when we're up for contract, but yeah, definitely general. I think we'd like to see, because I know they did it. I think they did one last year. I think one of the providers did one last year, but I don't think I've heard since my time on the board from the other two.
Yeah, I'd certainly back you on that. I think it would be nice to have a representative from each base provider, maybe to talk just a little bit about their offering, and I think it would reflect really well. Just even though my kids are not in the after school program now, having interacted previously, I think that it would be a real asset for the district to show what they offer.
Any comment? Okay. Okay. So item 8I, contracted services, Boys and Girls Club of the Peninsula. The administration recommends acceptance of the contract in the amount of $686,363 with the Boys and Girls Club of the Peninsula to provide an after-school program at Susan B. Anthony and Thomas R. Policita schools. The contract will be funded by the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program Grant and ACES Grant. Do we have a motion to approve?
A quick question. These contracts are for 2 years?
No, they're just for 1 year.
Okay, just clarifying.
We're just saying that we want them to commit to stay with us for 2 years at least.
I see. Okay, thank you. And then I guess I'll move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Unanimously approved. Item 8J, contracted services, City of Daly City, Department of Recreation. The administration recommends that the acceptance of a contract in the amount of $755,721.57 to provide an after-school program at Daniel Webster, Fernando Rivera, Margaret P. Brown, and Marjorie H. Tobias schools. The contract will be funded by the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program Grant and ACES Grant. We have a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously approved.
This is the one I have a correction. It is to be funded by ACES funds, not ELA.
Okay. Also, just want to say that I just noticed that we do have a dignitary in the house. We have City Clerk Annette Hipona, and we also have City Councilman, Councilperson Pamela D. Giovanni. And you've been here for a long time, Pamela, so thanks for coming tonight. Okay, so item 8K, contracted services, KCE Champions LLC. The administration recommends acceptance of a contract in the amount of $612,401.83 with KCE Champions LLC to provide an after-school program at Ben Franklin, Garden Village, John F. Kennedy, Westlake, and Woodrow Wilson schools. And as Superintendent McCulloch said, the contract will be funded by the ACES grant. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve the contract with Champions.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously approved. Item 8L, contracted services, YMCA of San Francisco. The administration recommends acceptance of a contract in the amount of $297,315.51 with the YMCA of San Francisco Peninsula Branch to provide an after-school program at Thomas Edison Elementary School. The contract will be funded by the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program Grant. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously approved. So I know we may have asked this before, but do we actually give them 57 cents? You know, we have all these contracts with these cents.
We budgeted in whole numbers, but yeah, it goes to the cent.
Does that make sense?
Let's get in late.
That was a good one.
That was
That was a good one.
That one I had to do.
Item, so I think this brings us to 9D, right? Am I correct? 9D. So this is the item that was pulled off of the consent agenda. I pulled it off because yeah. Okay, I put it off because we received some correspondence and there are also some speaker cards.
Do you want to take the speaker cards
We'll
first?
take the speaker
or-
cards first. Unless you would like to speak first, Superintendent McCulloch. That might be helpful.
Yeah,
They
I
might
was-
change there.
Well, I was just going to say that we did receive a correspondence from Mr. Weinberger from the Daly City History Guild Museum and Archive. And I shared that with all board members, and it is regarding the board agenda item 9D, where we have a bid to paint the interior and exterior of multiple schools, but Ben Franklin is the one that the letter is referencing. This letter is referencing painting the interior. The intent is to paint the interior classrooms to a brighter white color, or like a neutral white. Right now, the panels are dark wood, and they're pretty old and dilapidated. And so we are desiring to brighten the space, make them more welcoming and engaging. And so staff was informed, and then we went out to bid. And so this is the bid that was accepted. If we do not approve this bid as written, then we will need to postpone the painting until next summer, because that would delay us too long, because we'd have to go out to bid again. And that takes several weeks, which would then have to come to the board meeting, which may or may not make the June 12th meeting, which is already after school ends, and we would need the painting to begin as soon as school ends in order to be completed in time for school start in the fall. So if that is, it's up to the board to decide, but if we do not approve this agenda item, then the painting, we'd have to go out to bid again, and it would have to be for next summer. So you did receive the letter. I believe some folks are here tonight, so I'll let them speak on their behalf.
Thank you. All right, so we have first of all, speakers are customarily limited to 2 minutes. We welcome your input and remarks. Please address only items within our jurisdiction. So the first speaker is Annette Hipona.
Oh, pardon me. I have been a lifelong resident of Daly City, Lamont, all my life, pretty much. I, of course, went to Ben Franklin and was on the school board. I recognize you now with that hat. Good to see you. So 40, 50 years ago, my dad said, no, you can't paint over the wood paneling. And I always remembered that. And then I come to find out through the History Museum folks, Mark Weinberger, that this is what you're considering. My regret, my biggest regret in Daly City is that a lot of us didn't go to Westmore when they decided to change things there. I would like to express my big no to doing a paint job there. I admit I haven't seen it. It probably does look old, but I'd rather see it maintained to that original than whitewashed or whatever. And I don't mean that as a political term or anything, but please, let's leave it alone. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next speaker is Mark Weinberger.
Good evening. Thank you. Very nice to be here again. You received my letter. I sat where all of you do at one point, and I must say that I enjoy sitting in the audience far more. I want to clarify my remarks and actually extend it not just to Ben Franklin, where I graduated, but as I see you're considering other school sites, to all those school sites. I'm representing the Daly City History Guild Museum and Archive. We support maintaining all the schools. We support painting schools on appropriate surfaces. That's where our concern comes in. This room, this chamber has changed in the 20 years since I was here, but I do notice that you have natural wood elements here which go back to the original, and when this room was updated, obviously those surfaces were not painted. One can have an opinion anywhere one wants, but I would say that natural wood surfaces are mostly made to be left alone. I saw the pictures of some of the surfaces at Ben Franklin that were sent to me, and I would say that if there's a need to update and make the area more welcoming, then I would strenuously encourage you to look at restoring those surfaces, freshen them up, restain them, put a coat of varnish on. If that is beyond the budget, then I would respectfully ask that you just leave them alone. Paint the appropriate surfaces. Do not whitewash everything. It would be a tragedy, it would be a travesty, and once wood is painted, you cannot go back again. You can't. There's no way you could resand those surfaces, so if it's done for all time. So I thank you for your consideration, and I hope that you will leave the wood surfaces as they are. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weinberger. So there's no more speaker cards. Any questions or comments? And we'll start with Trustee Jordan.
Can we get a clarification on what is going to be painted at Ben Franklin?
Can I ask Mr. Heath if you wouldn't mind giving some clarity about what's happening?
We looked at all the surfaces in all the classrooms. There are some surfaces that are going to, that the scope of work requires to be stripped down and restained. The majority of the surfaces in the classrooms that are the two interior walls that have paneling on them would be required to be painted. That is the scope of work that was presented to the contractors. The restaining is basically around the stage, at the base of the stage, and a couple of other areas like that.
Is there a reason why there was a scope to paint instead of stain the panels?
A lot of the surfaces, it's beyond the ability to just stain them. Some of them have, individuals have etched sayings into them. There are gouges in them. There would be a lot of prep work that would be involved that is beyond beyond the ability of the contractors that we bid these out to. In this building in particular, we replaced a lot of the paneling that was old and dated and had been restained over at Ben Franklin. In the multi-use room, all of that wood surface has been painted over with a brown, and that's also continued on to the conduit and everything else. So it isn't even a restainable surface. It's a painted surface that's the wooden surface has been painted over in a brown. So the effort is to seal that surface and then paint it in a neutral color that brightens up the classroom. The other component that we looked at and the educational services looked at it with at the same time is creating kind of a blank palette in the classroom that allows the staff members to put up, curriculum items on those walls to brighten the room so that we can use ambient light instead of having to augment light with lights in the classrooms.
You said that the multi-use room had panels that were already painted over. Is that the only room that has panels painted over, or have we painted some of the classrooms already at some point before this bid?
Yeah, some classrooms have already been painted over. Some classrooms, they've actually put more paneling over the existing paneling. The paneling that is there is damaged. There have been holes cut in it. There's also a very inconsistent finish on it where there might have been pictures or maybe screens or something on the wall so that it fades at a different rate. So you have a darker colored paneling surrounded by lighter colored paneling that's been bleached out by the sun. And the only way to recoup that would be to strip it down to bare wood and then refinish it back. And the delta for that would be, it would be much easier just to repanel a wall than to try to re-prep that surface like that.
Thank you, Mr. Heath. I ask those questions because I want the clarification to the public for the questions and the statements that have been made. I was a parent at Ben Franklin before my daughter moved on, and I said earlier, a helicopter parent. I was on the PTA, was there all the time, and those classrooms are very dark. So I understand the need to brighten those classrooms. I will say I remember being there at, high noon and the sun is out, and I would say that there was no lighting in the classroom, even with the lights on. So it was very interesting. So I understand the need. I understand the concern, though. As someone that is a San Francisco native, I've gone to the Hayes Valley area, and you cannot tell that it looks like San Francisco anymore. It's basically like modern glass everywhere. It doesn't feel like, what it used to be when I was growing up. And so I understand the, nostalgia and the historian viewpoint of wanting to keep a place as is. However, when I was at Ben as a parent, I remember vividly saying this school needs to be completely redone, honestly, and rebuilt from the ground up because of the amount of work that honestly is really needed. I remember students complaining about water being brown coming out of their faucets in the classroom, just not having a water fountain. I remember as a PTA parent, we actually got money together and we were like, we're going to put a water fountain in there ourselves. And so again, I understand the concerns of the community, but I also understand the need to have our classrooms have better visibility for our students as they're learning. And so those were my comments and questions.
Well, brown water comes out at every school. I've never been at a school that didn't have that, but I actually had a couple questions. Was the school community asked about this project?
The school community was informed about this project during a staff meeting. We try to do a cycle of painting, and so they were up for painting. And this school, as Trustee Jordan had mentioned, is definitely in need of some repair, a lot of repair, and most likely is going to need a complete remodel, or if not a tear down. But that will require a bond measure, which would take several years. So this is just really an effort to brighten the school, a temporary fix for the next couple of years until we can get to that point. But yeah, so the staff was informed and had opportunity to provide input.
Okay, and then where was that input?
Through the staff meeting.
And then I guess what's the cost difference in restaining / replacing the wood versus painting?
That is a question I do not know the answer to, so I'm going to ask Mr. Heath to come back up.
So replacing the wood versus, the question was replacing the wood versus, or
project at
restaining
hand.
the wood versus painting it. It would probably add about 50% to the project. So in theory, we're talking about another couple $100,000, $250,000.
Thank you.
So that would be to stain or replace.
A little of both. There's a lot of the wood surfaces that are beyond being renovated. They would actually have to just be replaced. Probably more than 50% of the wood surfaces would have to be replaced. So in this room in particular, as was alluded to, we were able to save a couple of existing doors, but everything else had to be taken down to the bare wood and restained. And on a lot of the panel, all of the paneling had to be replaced that's on the high and low of this room.
Yeah, I would also add structurally, as we make renovations or repairs to our school sites, To spend more money on a school site where structurally it needs like a lot more work, I just think fiscally it would be irresponsible.
And and I hear those. I think the fact that we received a letter with, staff expressing that they are not in favor makes me very hesitant, just because if I, as a teacher, if someone came into my classroom and dictated what had to be done, I think I would feel, I don't think I would be in favor of that. So thank you.
I appreciate all of the concerns raised tonight. I do take issue with the statement that it's the teacher's classroom. I think that it is the community's classroom, and it's the province of students, of the families that are going to be served in the classroom. And I do think that our priority should be to focus on the most engaging and suitable environment for teaching those students. Thank you.
So, Superintendent Mikulik, you mentioned that it possibly would need a tear down the school. Could you talk more about that?
Well, as Mr. Laro said, there's a lot of repairs that need to happen, and to do minor repairs to a school that's probably going to need a total renovation is not really cost effective. And so, as we're looking at the windows and things like that, it would be more cost effective to rebuild the school than to actually replace the windows. Am I correct in stating that?
Correct.
Do you want to add to that?
Correct. And the other issue is when we start removing surfaces like windows or window frames or anything that could be construed as structural or integral to the structure of the school, then we fall in the predicament that it has to be a DSA approved project. What we're doing now is painting, which is a maintenance issue. If we start tearing out components of walls, tearing out paneling, tearing out window frames and things like that, then what it becomes is a modernization of the school, which all of that modernization would fall under the guidelines of the Office of Public School Construction, OPSC. And so we would have to design it to current OPSC standards. So the effort is to paint it so we don't have a group of students in the next 4 or 5 years who lose out on having a learning environment that's conducive to learning while we formulate a plan to address the project of replacing the school.
Thank you. So it sounds like we're in a race against time. And in the meantime, I want to side with Trustee Rashba. We should be thinking about what's in the best interest of the students. So have you heard anything about what the students are saying? Superintendent Mikulik or any?
Mr. Turner is the principal, and he's shaking his head.
So the students aren't saying that it's dark in the room or they don't like how it looks or anything like that?
At the school site council meeting today, one of the students did ask if the painting project was going to be happening. And I said, it was up for board approval tonight. I don't necessarily know if there was any particular positive or negative as to what would be happening, but just inquiring about the painting project. I think they'd heard that from probably the staff.
So do we have any other questions, any other comments, issues, concerns?
I just want to, so when the email came out, well, multiple emails, but there was an email that came this afternoon, and I responded back to Superintendent Ms. Mikulik asking why we had teachers that had signed that petition. And if there was some sort of fear of speaking up, if we didn't get any feedback prior to us receiving that petition, and basically how we plan to address this with the staff in the future to ensure that any modernizations that we want to do has their buy-in and an understanding before we get to a board meeting. And I would like Miss Superintendent McCulloch to respond to everyone what she responded to me.
Yeah, so honestly, I didn't think painting a school was going to be a hot button issue. The other items on this agenda that you'll see later are regarding the fencing projects at school sites. And we went out, Mr. Heath and I and the architect went out to all 3 sites, talked about the project. And so if I had thought that this was going to be this big of an issue, we would have done the same going to the school site. I didn't think painting a classroom was going to be an issue. I thought they would actually be very happy that their schools would be painted. So lesson learned. In the future, we will be making sure that the staff knows well in advance that this is the plan. And if they have any questions that, I'll go to a staff meeting. But honestly, I did not, it was even on consent agenda because I did not think that this would be an issue. And I'm finding out 2 days before the board meeting that this is an issue. So I wish I had known earlier before we even put it out to bid, because then we could have maybe addressed some concerns. This could have been avoided. So I was concerned about the petition from staff, because I wish it had been brought to our attention a long time ago. And because we have done that process with other sites with bigger projects. I honestly didn't think this was going to be as big of a concern as it has been. So I apologize to the staff for not coming to their staff meeting earlier. But I do strongly feel that the school needs some freshening up, even if it's temporary, because we pride ourselves on welcoming, engaging, safe schools, and part of being a welcoming environment is having bright, clean classrooms that students see themselves in, instead of very dark. It doesn't feel welcoming. Mr. Sujisaka and I went to their open house, and I was pointing out some of the paneling to him, and I just shared some pictures. It just really looks run down, and so we really wanted to freshen it up and make it look a little nicer for our students and our families and our staff. I actually thought staff would appreciate having painted walls, so I was a little surprised and blindsided by this petition.
So I think after hearing everyone saying, I think, as much as nostalgia is there, I think I look at the number one thing or the only thing that we have on our list is keeping the focus on the best interest of our students. And I will say, just like what Superintendent McCulloch said, walking into that school, we want our students to be in a welcoming environment. And so again, I have my own personal opinions on it, but I do think that this isn't about me or my personal opinion. This is about what is best for our students and for our district.
Okay. So I just want to summarize what I've heard. So what we have on the table right now, if we postpone it, and let's say we wanted to stain instead, whatever we could stain, we would have to wait another year to even do that. We'd have to put out a new bid. It would be too late. Because it would be too late. We need to do any of that while the students aren't there. Anything we do is temporary because that school is on its way out at some point. So do we have a motion?
I will move to approve the painting project at Ben Franklin.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I think we should probably do a roll call vote on this one.
Mr. Rashba.
Aye.
Mr. Sujisaka.
Aye.
Ms. Jordan.
Aye.
Mr. Ali.
Aye, unanimously approved. You're welcome. Thank you. Item 9H, John F. Kennedy Elementary School Safety Site Work, bid acceptance. The bid opening for the John F. Kennedy Elementary School Safety.
I'm sorry, 9G.
Oh, did I skip? Oh, sorry, yeah. 9G, Franklin D. Roosevelt Elementary School Safety Site Work Project, bid acceptance. The bid opening for the Franklin D. Roosevelt Elementary School Safety Site Work Project will be held on May 21st, 2024 at 2 p.m. at the district office. The bid summary will be attached by May 22nd, 2024, and the administration will recommend the lowest responsible bidder for this project, plus a 10% contingency to cover unforeseen conditions to be controlled by the district administration at the May 22nd, 2024 board meeting. This project will be funded by routine restricted maintenance funds. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously approved. Item 9H, John F. Kennedy Elementary School Safety Site Work. The bid opening for the John F. Kennedy Elementary School Safety Site Work Project will be held on May 21st, 2024 at 2 p.m. at the district office. The bid summary will be attached by May 22nd, 2024, and the administration will recommend the lowest responsible bidder for this project, plus a 10% contingency to cover unforeseen conditions to be controlled by the district administration at the May 22nd, 2024 board meeting. This project will be funded by Measure J. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously approved. Item 9I, Westlake Elementary School Safety Site Work, bid acceptance. The bid opening for the Westlake Elementary School Safety Site Work Project will be held on May 21st, 2024 at 2 p.m. at the district office. The bid summary will be attached by May 22nd, 2024, and the administration will recommend the lowest responsible bidder for this project, plus a 10% contingency to cover unforeseen conditions to be controlled by the district administration at the May 22nd, 2024 board meeting. This project will be funded by Measure J. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously approved. Item 9K, Resolution Number 24-05-22, Establishment of Other Enterprise Fund. The administration recommends approval of Resolution Number 24-05-22, Establishment of Other Enterprise Fund 63. I have a question about that. When we say other enterprise, does that mean that we could put money in there from anything, from any source, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the other enterprise fund is primarily built for other streams of revenue outside of LCFF, Title I programs, ELOP, ELOG. As you guys are well aware of Eastmore Heights, our workforce housing project, we will be generating rental income. With the establishment of Fund 63, what we'll be doing is setting up, if employees elect to, from direct deposits or deductions from their paycheck to pay their rent, it'll be going from their paycheck into Fund 63. Now, I think it's with great financial foresight or what have you to build up a reserve of the 10% of the total cost of the project, which would be approximately $3.5 million. So in 10 years, when we need to put a new roof, or we've got to repair stairs, or change up the painting or what have you, we have the funds set aside to make sure that workforce housing project is a crown jewel and has the same shine that it has as being brand new. With that being said, once we hit a targeted reserve amount for maintenance over the long term, what the board will have discretion to do is utilize the revenues from Fund 63 to supplement our Fund 1 general fund as a revenue generator. in the out years. So establishing this fund gives us the flexibility to supplement our revenues in Fund 1, as well as make sure we set aside a savings for, keeping the maintenance of the workforce housing, just being ready for any unexpected costs that we're going to have in the decades to come.
Okay, sounds good. Whose idea was this?
In my job, you try not to reinvent the wheel too much. And luckily, we have great partners with Jefferson Union High School District, and just going through the different options we could have done. They've paved the way in some aspects, along with the county council, in helping us develop in this project and get it to come to life. So, with their counseling and guidance, it helped make the decision very easy.
Great. Do you have any other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so even though it's a resolution, it says voice vote. Yeah, so we do need a roll call for this.
Mr. Rashba?
Aye.
Mr. Sujisaka?
Aye.
Ms. Jordan?
Aye.
Mr. Ali?
Aye. Unanimously approved. Big thanks to the high school district. Item 9L, update on May revision of the state budget.
Good evening. We've had a lot of great presentations tonight, so I want to applaud my colleagues. I'm going to try to stay concise. I know money at 9:02 p.m. can get a little muddy, so we're going to try to keep it very high level. So if you guys can recall, usually in the budget development process, it starts in January, right? The governor's proposal, and then we hone in, or the government hones in on how they're going to fund the budget for the following year. And that's called the May revision, right? So what we're doing is utilizing what's been presented at the May revision and plugging that in here locally at Jefferson Elementary School District. And how does that affect us, right? So as in most of my presentations, we start at a high federal level and we dial into the state level, then get to the local level. So, the big takeaway from the U.S. economy, the Fed is concerned about stagflation. What is stagflation, you ask? It's when there's simultaneous slow growth in gross domestic product, high unemployment, and rising cost. We're talking about sticky inflation, not inflation where oil goes up or gas goes up a few dollars or goes down a few dollars. I'm talking about things like home insurance, property insurance, liability insurance, auto insurance, things that are just going up in cost and not going down at all, right? Medical costs, right? Things that have just been more expensive, right? And they're not fluctuating. CPI is still high, and with that being said, inflation's high, or climbing back up over 2%, which is the federal target rate. So when we started off the year, we were anticipating some rate cuts from the Fed, Federal Reserve. With that being said, now we're anticipating that interest rates are going to be staying elevated in 2024, right? So what does that do? That can stifle growth with the GDP. It could, makes money more expensive to fund research and development or push out new things in the economy. So that's just a big deal, right? Moving forward with the thanks, Mr. Valenti. Moving forward, the state economy. So you guys are. There you go. I'll pause for a second. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Board of Trustees, for solving that. But got some curveballs here. But going back to the U.S. economy, it's just stagflation, high inflation, low GDP growth, high unemployment, rising costs. So now we're going to move into the state. So with the state, as you guys are aware, the collection of tax revenues in 2022 was delayed. Similar to how my presentations be.
Okay. Yeah, so it just started feeling really hot in here. So
No, it's
we needed
okay.
to-
I just want to make sure you guys are getting everything. Okay, so talking about the state economy and politics, right? So as you are well aware, the collection of the 2022 taxes was delayed. It was delayed due to states of emergency in 2023, which led the 2023 Budget Act to be adopted on projected revenues versus actual, right? With that being said, at the governor's January proposal, if you can recall, there was a $37.9 billion deficit, right? Through the time, the projection of anticipated revenues actually came in and they were 25% lower, right? So what does that do for the state's budget, right? The May revision had forecasted a $44.9 billion deficit for fiscal year 24-25. However, with Assembly Bill 106, which is the early action that was taken in April, reduced the federal deficit by $17.3 billion. In the May revision, this is resulting in a revised deficit of $27.6 billion. We'll talk a little bit more on how that's being accomplished, but there's been lots of cuts, funding shifts, deferrals, and other programs outside of Prop 98. If you call Prop 98 is our funding vehicle for education in the state of California. One thing I'd like to highlight is with high interest rates, right? Our GDP in California has been trending down. I mean, the stock market has been, 1% over than what it's been in January. But with the high interest rates, also coinciding is we have the highest unemployment rate in the United States at 5.3%. Second is Washington, D.C. at 5.1%. So this goes back to, how could we stimulate growth in the economy in California? If the economy is good in California, corporate taxes, personal income taxes, capital gains taxes, like these are all revenue generating sources, right? So that's just the concern that we're having here in the state. So when we're talking about deficit, how do we stop the deficit or cover those losses? It's with our reserves. And if you can recall, the state has a Prop 98 reserve specifically for public education, right? It's a public school system stabilization account. So there's two different options that the governor can withdraw these funds. It's either by budget emergency or triggered by the Prop 98 formula, which means revenues are not sufficient for the minimum guarantee, right? So the minimum guarantee is focused on the current year, the prior year, and the upcoming year is the minimum guarantee. We have a ceiling and we have a floor and a ceiling for funding. So every year, depending on what the revenues are going to be, we're guaranteed a dollar amount. What the big difference is there's been such a shortfall that we're having to exhaust all of our savings in Prop 98, right? With that being said, we're using $5.8 billion just in this year and $2.6 billion in next year, right? So these are one-time monies that are going to be used to back cover, revenues in Prop 98. So what does that mean, right? So over the 3 years, which is prior year, current year, and future year, so 2022, 23, 23, 24, and 24, 25, they've actually revised the Prop 98 minimum guarantee $14.8 billion lower, right? So with that being said, most of that part of that $8.8 billion of the shortfall was in 22, 23, a fiscal year that's already passed, right? So the governor in the Budget Act of 2023 had made promises to fund us at a certain level, but when the tax revenues came in 25% lower, they realized, hey, we actually paid you $8.8 billion more than you should have gotten. With that being said, the governor now has a Prop 98 funding, quote unquote, funding maneuver, of which they're going to borrow $8.8 billion from the state's cash to cover the gap.
Prop 98 would then pay the general fund back over a 5-year period from 25-26, so 2 years out, onwards, of about $1.76 billion annually. As you are probably wondering, yes, this is being highly contested at the state. So essentially they're saying you can't take the money that was given to us, right? And then we need to make changes with either deferrals or cutting down on Prop 98. There's also 3 different funding formulas for Prop 98. Test 1 is the one that we're in. It accounts for declining enrollment. Not declining enrollment. Test 2 and 3 account for ADA in the calculation of Prop 98. Now, if he were to change the funding from Test 1 to Test 2 or Test 3, we would actually get $14.8 billion more. So to aid in the confusion, the May revision is still being contested as we speak, so we won't know what's going to happen until then. But just know that the state revenues are down by a pretty wide margin, and they're going to have to close out the budget by the end of June. So we'll know more later. But as we move forward, here's other things that were presented in the May revision that we're utilizing for our budget. Right. We're utilizing a 1.07 cost of living adjustment to the LCFF. If you can recall, back in January, that was 0.7. So we'll take what we can get, even if it's a small amount. There's also COLA being adjusted to special education, child nutrition, mandated block grant. I think Trustee Ali, your voice was heard in government, because they have increased special education funding by a total of, I think, $295 million. So we're excited to see what that's going to be for us, what that's going to mean for our district. They're also fully funding Universal Meals Program, and also continuing to fund the ELOB program. So as you know, we've sometimes we don't have to do anything, but our costs just go up, right? One thing we're going to mention here is, the CalPERS rate. So over time, I think even before 23-24, it was in like 15-16, it was in the low teens. So every year, because there's unfunded liabilities within the CalPERS pension system, if they can't fund it, we as employers have to pay that. So eventually, once we get to 27, 28, we're almost paying 30% of somebody's salary to cover the pension liabilities, right? Thankfully, CalSTRS, their rate has stayed flat at 19.10, but in years past, that was a single-digit number. So we don't have to do anything, and our expenses are just going up, right? On the slide here, this is just showing you how the local control funding formula is calculated. We get a base grant amount. We get an additional 1.07% on top of that funding. Because of class size reduction agreement, we get another $1,043 per TK through 3 enrollment. Then we get supplemental and concentration grant funding, right? Depending on if our unduplicated pupil percentage is higher than 20% or higher than 55%, we also get concentration grant funds, as well as home to school transportation, and as well as transitional kindergarten, as we are widening the net for our students to be enrolled in our schools. That's giving us additional funding and counts toward our enrollment in ADA. Right. With that being said, all 4-year-olds are eligible for our TK programs. So now, what does that mean for our funding, right? So we're anticipating a 63.93% average duplicated count. So we get concentration or supplemental and concentrating grant funding. And our entitlement for the year is $60.6 million. Okay. That is, we're utilizing our current ADA percentage. So the amount of time that students are actually in seats, which is 93.75%. As you guys are very well aware, and hopefully the public is also aware, our historical average is at 96.2%. So, for us, low-hanging fruit is go to school, be in school. Historically, students would miss about 5 to 9 days on an average year. Now, on average, students are missing about 14 to 17 days, right? So that's a huge jump. We've utilized cohort-based declining enrollment. So if this group here is in first grade today or this year, next year we're in
second grade. However, we've made slight adjustments because if we look at our actual enrollments today, we're at 5,035 students, right? So we're actually have gained a little bit more students, so which is promising. But we are still going to project out conservatively and lose some amount of students. So next up we're going to start looking at our multi-year projection. Things I want to highlight that aren't in there are any new program funding, increased contributions to special education, increases to our health and welfare premiums, any Prop 98 reductions, one-time revenues, any negotiated salary and benefit increases, any further reductions in enrollment or average daily attendance, further reductions in our unduplicated pupils, any other possible funding. And one that I didn't write on here was the increased cost of insurance. When I first came here in 2020, our total property and liability insurance was about $500,000. Coming up this next year, we're going to be spending about $1.2 million. So, like I said, things are just increasing that we don't have to do anything, but they're increasing in cost. Okay, so here's a snapshot of our multi-year projection. What you can see here is I've included our adopted budget, first interim and second interim. Moving forward through our projected budget, we have some figures in here that we're utilizing for our actual 24-25 budget. However, you'll be seeing more information at the June 12th meeting. With the steep decline in funded ADA, which is you're going to see in additional slides, we're seeing a lot of top line revenue loss. We're also seeing increased costs in special education, our general fund programs. I think that Superintendent McCulloch and Assistant Superintendent Scott were really trying to influence student outcomes, right? But it comes at a cost. And so as we're trying to influence these student incomes and we're losing top line revenue, we start to deficit spend, right? Through the years, what we're going to be doing is taking a look at what's working and what's not working, right? I mean, we're investing a lot into our students as well as the community to try to influence student outcomes, With that being said, we do have healthy reserves and, through the next few years, we'll be strategically utilizing those reserves to ensure the continuity of our plans to see if they work, right? We're trying to always push the needle and do what's right and what's best for our students and our community. With that being said, we're also going to be looking at, hey, are there inefficiencies where they're not working? We're spending the money and we're not reaping any rewards, or we're not, moving the needle where we need to be. We'll be looking at those and potentially making reductions in those areas to make sure that we have a balanced budget. With that being said, let's talk about why our funding is dropping, right? I've shown this every presentation since I've been a CBO or Assistant Superintendent of Business Services. This has been, a problem not only in my tenure, but as well as Ms. Kessler's tenure, and she was here for 10 years. The biggest driver of our revenue loss is enrollment, okay? Trustee Roshba, you did have a question last presentation with the demographic study. Yeah, one of the ways how they protect school districts is by utilizing a 3-year rolling average, right? And so you can see here from 22-23 to 23-24, our funding is pretty good. The COLA is great. I mean, we're losing 300 students in funded ADA, right? But you can see here, we lose another 300 students in ADA from 23 to 24 to 24-25, and the COLA is only 1.07%. which leaves us with a 5.65% loss in funding, right? What's helping us is we're not actually seeing as big as drops anymore as we had in the past. In fact, we're seeing student gains. So we're hoping that if one thing could be sticky, instead of inflationary objects, hopefully it could be students coming to our schools, right? With that being said, the loss of students from 24-25 to 25-26 isn't as high. And with the COLAs being, at almost 3% and 3% or higher, right? We start to see small gains in top line revenue, which is promising, right? Just want to make sure you guys are noting the correlation between funded ADA and revenue growth in COLA, right? We're having a 1.07% COLA in 24-25, but the loss of students is so great that becomes diminished. So what are the timeline and next steps, right? We're going to approve our budget before June 30th, 2024. Okay. It's a two-step process. The first step process is a public hearing for the budget and the LCAP. That'll be happening June 12th. After that, at a separate board meeting, we'll be holding, the board will be approving the budget on June 26th. That was the 28th. But what's going to happen at the state level is they're going to fight back and forth to see, make concessions and figure out what they're going to pass in the May revision. There's some things that are going to change. With that being said, we're going to adopt our budget before the state. And so after the state adopts their budget, sometime in August, when we have the next meeting, with that, there'll be 45 days where we'll present to the board what those changes are, what actually came to pass and what didn't pass, if there is deferrals or not deferrals, and things of that nature. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. We'll start from Trustee Rashba.
Thank you, Mr. Laurel, for the presentation. I guess my question is, what information will you wait on between now and the final presentation for the JESD, preparation for the JESD budget to incorporate? I know we won't have the state budget finalized yet, but we will have some clarification on that. And then the slide where you went over all of the things that are kind of left out of this calculation. But what do you wait on?
Right now, it's not about waiting. It's about looking internally to ensure that, what we're budgeting is correct, making sure that we're not over budgeting for vacant positions that are going to be unfilled. It's ensuring that, our calculations are correct for the year. We tend to stay very conservative in terms of our enrollment projections, what's coming from the state. We've got a lot of great resources throughout the state, School Services of California, CSBA, a lot of different advocacy groups that are working, to get us all the information that they can from Sacramento, right? As you're well aware, the budget is a living and breathing document, and it's going to change, right? We could take a snapshot today. We could take a snapshot of where we were this time last year, and it was a very different picture, right? It wasn't a 1.07% COLA, it was 3.98, right? And our costs hadn't gone up, as much as we're anticipating them to be for next year, right? So it's it's also working with Dr. Adams, working with Assistant Superintendent Scott, working with Mr. Brent Marquez Valenti, just to ensure that we're running efficient programs, we're providing the best programs that we can, that offer continuity, and just reflecting on internally, what are our assumptions, and are they aligning to, what's going on at the state level?
Thank you for the presentation. I had two questions. One quick one is more, does this mean that because of the negative values we're going to be seeing in the future, will this mean that we're going to be in negative certification?
No, not at all. Thankfully, in my tenure, we've had some really good years. It came on top of record funding from the federal government. It came from record funding from the state. It came from record tax revenues, right? That the state pushed down to public schools. And so through that time, we were able to build a very healthy fund balance. We're with the intention of, we know that the economy and ups and downs, they're cyclical, right? Look at the Great Recession of 2008, right? That's a great subprime mortgage lending crisis. Things like that. The dot-com bubble, right? We just have to make sure that we're prepared. And, I firmly believe in the heart of my stance that we are very well prepared for this downturn, which is in part being caused by our enrollment, right? We haven't really taken a hit yet in Prop 98. The governor has stood by his word and not cutting into education. But we won't know for sure until
the budget's completely passed, starting in July, right? But we will not have a negative certification. We have a pretty long runway to make sure that we have enough time to steer the ship in the right direction.
And then my second question is how we're voicing this to our families of chronic absentee students. Like, is there messaging going out to them, educating them on like what is chronic absenteeism, how that affects us, and then also seeking feedback from our families about their values of education and why chronic absenteeism.
If you follow us on our social media, it is a constant message about attending school on time. And every school site has a committee and staff that focuses on connecting with the families that are chronically absent and seeing what is the concern, what is the issue, why are they absent so frequently, and trying to provide support so the counselors get involved or student services department. So that's really the biggest impact, is when you have that direct contact with the family that is chronically absent, to provide those supports. So, not everyone reads on social media and pays attention to that. So it's really that one-on-one connection, and that is pretty strong. You'll see, at the end of this year, that our chronic absenteeism results are dropping, which is what we want. So last year it was like 22%. I think right now we're at 18%. So we'll just keep, decreasing and decreasing. And our average daily attendance, I think, as an inverse of that, is increasing. So we just need to keep decreasing chronic absenteeism and increasing our average daily attendance.
Thank you. That was go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, talk about low hanging fruit for us. If we can get back a couple percent in average daily attendance, right, that's going to affect our 3-year average, and our revenues are actually going to go up. And so you'll see some of that deficit washed away, right? So in terms of low hanging fruit, like, get to school, be at school. And it's the place for you to be conducive to learning. It helps us afford rich programs, lots of support staff, that are conducive to, our students and their education. So.
Yeah, thank you. That was the answer I was looking for. And I think that's also something I think we're also trying to recover from the pandemic is, well, I should stay home because I'm sick. Right. But then, I also need to be in school. So now it's like we're battling that, because now we're in the aftermath, which now we're in the middle. Because definitely, like, the last couple of years have been, oh, yes, please stay home. Don't come to school. But now, yeah, so it's just going to be a never ending cycle. So thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. You actually answered my questions throughout. So thank you.
So I have a question. Can you go back to it's all of our favorite slide. So I'm concerned. I've said it before, and I'm going to keep saying it. When I look, I know you don't have to put 2026, 27 there, but 23, 24, 24, 25, 20, all these years we have deficit spending or strategic use of reserves. When can we see something different? Like, what do we have to do? What would it take to not have a third year with the $3.1 million that we're taking out our reserves?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, we don't have to do anything and our costs are going up, right? We don't have to do anything and our revenues are going down. Okay. Like I said earlier, we're looking internally at all of our programs. There's a lot that's happening in the LCAP where there's a lot of different support staff. There's a lot of different, programs that we're running to enrich our students. And I think the focus is to get those CAS scores up, to influence, the students and their learning. That comes at a cost, right? We're trying to run, a rich program. And I think through the next couple years, right, as these programs matriculate out and we see the effectiveness of it, we're going to be looking at, how effective is it? And with that, if it's an ineffective program and we're essentially burning money, that's not a program that we're going to continue, right? And so I think we're always in a state of, I like to praise my colleagues a lot because we are always in a state of continuous improvement. We're always reflecting whether or not,
things that we're doing are good or in ways that we can be better, right? And although this is disheartening to see and it's a tough pill to swallow, you know, there are districts out there that are in a very worse position than we are because they don't have, you know, a runway of more than 3 years to strategically use their reserves. Okay, and confidently, you know, if everything stays current with what's being shown, like we have more actually than what's being presented in terms of runway. We have a lot of runway. So with that being said, we're trying to make sure that the programs that we're running are being effective, right? And if they're ineffective, then those are being taken a look at.
Okay, that's fair. I just want people to see, though, you have to be able to read these documents. We have 50 million, 51 million coming in 2024, 25, and then we're spending 52 million. The next year, 50 million coming in, spending 53 million. The next 51 comes in, we spend 54.
Yeah, that's why this slider here is so important, right? It's really shown you know, we had tons of revenue growth. I mean, even to 21, 22, right? Our revenues were going up, coals were high, but you got to remember our funded 88. Like this is the Achilles heel of every district in the state of California. Moreover, San Mateo County is like top 5 for percentage of student loss. Like we're one of the highest counties in the state. You know, our Achilles heel is actual 88 and funded 88, right? Like, look at this, $4 million almost in this next year. I mean, if this COLA at the beginning of the year is 3.98 or last year, so that 3.98% COLA, we would have gotten like 62.5 million. So the loss of revenue would have only been 2 million, which going back to here, you know, add 2 million in revenue here, we wouldn't be deficit spending, right?
Okay.
So go ahead.
What can Trustee Rashbai and I do to affect this?
Right now, you know, all you can do is you know, speak with Superintendent McCulloch and ensure that the programs that we have that we're not being, you know, we're staffing appropriately to our programs. There's a lot of work being done with Ms. Scott and her department to make sure that, you know, I know you guys want the best for our students. We want to address student outcomes and learning loss and really push the needle. But what comes with that is investment, right? It's an investment. So as we continue to move through the year, you know, Mr. Brent Marquez Valenti, he does a great job of reviewing our headcounts and, you know, our grade levels at every school site to ensure that, you know, we're not overstaffing to the point where all the revenue that's being generated isn't enough to cover the teachers at the school site. So, like I said, you know, right now we always add, you know, a couple of years on to see what would happen in the future, but we also don't know what's going to happen in the future, right? We don't have a crystal ball. Maybe, you know, the tax revenues jump up 25% for the following year, right? Maybe the COLA isn't a 2.93. Maybe it goes up to a 4%. Hopefully not, because that would mean the inflation's high. But, you know, I think right now, let us get through this year. Let's see what programs are working and how we're influencing student outcomes. And then, you know, the good thing about being in a state of continuous improvement is we're always looking to find efficiencies within our programs. So,
to your point, I will say I do think that the board will need to think creatively about revenue generation. I don't want to, you know, have it be that the only solutions are that, you know, in order to increase revenue, it's incumbent upon parents to get their kids there, you know, when they may be sick. That's not what they should be doing. It's not all on parents. There are some times when students should stay home. And, you know, I don't want the only choices to be that we just have to cut programs if our the greater economic trends of, you know, not seeing enrollment growth and revenue growth from the state are coming in. So I think we should be thinking about fundraising. And one reason why I was talking about relationships with the community, with the LCAP, why I think that's important is that other districts are, able to raise money from the business community, are able to, generate that community support. That may not generate that much overall. It's generally for very restricted purposes. We certainly have greater needs, but that could really help.
Yeah, it goes back to what we had, the resolution you guys had passed earlier, passing of Fund 63. What's going to be a great supplement to our general fund after we build a savings account for our workforce housing is, utilizing some of those fundings to supplement our general fund as well, which is also an option.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question. So we received a message from CSBA, California School Board Association, about the May revise, and they mentioned something about let's see. Well, they called it the Prop 98 funding maneuver. Do you know about this?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier.
Okay, so what are your thoughts about it? That it says it will reclassify the $8.8 billion that was already appropriated to be and spent by LEAs. You already mentioned this?
Yeah. So if you go back to my presentation to here, right? So if you go, due to state revenues being lower, there's an $8.8 billion shortfall in Prop 98 for 22-23. The $8.8 billion shortfall affects the minimum guarantee funds that were already paid, right? So essentially, we got more money, or school districts in California got more money than they should have gotten in fiscal year 22-23, but fiscal 22-23 is already come and gone, right? And so what he's essentially doing is borrowing $8.8 billion from the general fund outside of Prop 98 to backfill into Prop 98. And then over 5 years, starting in 25-26, he's going to take $1.76 billion from Prop 98 into the general fund. Constitutionally, organizations or advocacy groups like CSBA are hawks about this, and it's their stance that this is unconstitutional. They can't do that, right? Other organizations like School Services California say, okay, if you're not going to, if you're going to be, if there's a shortfall, now you're going to use a different test. If you're not going to do the funding, quote unquote, funding maneuver, maybe you change the test to test 2 or test 3, which in turn gives the school districts about $14 billion more. So we'll get more money. But then the problem is it's a catch-22 because the state doesn't have that extra money, right? So, yeah, I mean, what are we going to do? What is my feeling on it? I feel like what's going to happen is they're going to start doing deferrals in order to eat that, because then that way they won't have to pay back the general fund from Prop 98, right? So I have a feeling that's going to happen. I mean, luckily for us, we have cash to offset those deferrals. So the deferral would mean, instead of getting all the money we should have been getting in the current year, they push it out to the next year. But we're still getting the same dollar amount. We're just not getting it right now.
At the right time. So that's what I was mentioning last meeting when I said either they're going to give us the money early or give it to us late, but it's still our money and it's not enough. So I just want to read what this says. It says CSBA is asking all California school board members to voice their opposition to this unprecedented maneuver that would effectively dismantle Prop 98 and permanently destabilize TK through 14 education funding. It says legitimizing this manipulation of Prop 98 would set a dangerous precedent. That's what you're talking about, whereby the governor or legislature could reduce Prop 98 whenever the state is unable to meet the minimum level of funding for education. So I would encourage all of us to research this more, look into it, and think about voicing our opposition. What do you think about that, board member?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if they don't want, the maneuver is going to have some lasting effects on Prop 98, right? So Prop 98, California education K through 14 gets 40% of the state's total budget, right? 40% of all the tax money in the state goes towards education. And so by effectively knocking out the floor on what the minimum guarantee is, they're structurally changing how Prop 98 is given to school sites. I mean, this comes off the back of them
utilizing projected numbers in 2022 when they didn't have tax revenues, right? It was all based on assumptions. They thought it kept going up with the taxes, but in reality, it doesn't, right? It's a cycle. So, my stance, I don't really have a stance. I'm kind of just waiting to see, I'm hoping that they don't pull the rug underneath this. I'm expecting some hurt in terms of like a deferral or something, because at the end of the day, he's going to have this passed by the legislature, and there's a lot of advocacy groups that are claiming this is constitutionally like wrong or incorrect. So all we could do is tighten the belt, take a look at our programs. I mean, we're not going to be in a negative qualification or qualify. Yeah, we're going to be positively qualified to meet our financial obligations. In fact, for 2 years and more. So at the end of the day, we're kind of just waiting to see what's going to happen.
Okay, thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. You're welcome.
Trustee Elise, sorry, I know it's getting late here. I just wanted to agree with Trustee Rashba on the statement of we should be looking at fundraising. And I had a question. I know last year we had a presentation from an organization who would help us with fundraising and
Bay
getting
Ed Fund,
programs.
yeah.
Bay Ed. What is going on with that? I don't think I've heard anything since that presentation.
Yeah, we've connected with them this year, and I believe I put it in an info bulletin probably months and months ago, but they are still growing as well, and so they're not really ready to take us on as a district. But I've reached out to Kids First Foundation recently. I'm waiting to hear back, and I will be contacting that parent that was here that had some ideas, that was talking about fundraising as well. But we also are applying for community schools grants in the future, so that's some additional funding. I mean, it is targeted to certain services, but there are grants and things that we can also get additional funding as well. But we also may need to look at how we function as a school district, and how we looked at the demographic reports, and we're going to see more in September about students living in our community and who's going to our schools and not. So we may need to think even bigger about how we can plan for the future.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. And also just want to remember and thank Dr. Adams. You mentioned earlier tonight about that director position that you're not going to refill. So thank you, unless you really need that help. Coordinator, okay, got you.
Before we move on to the next agenda item, just for the purpose of the meeting minutes and to be transparent, on items 9G, H, and I want to just, for the record, state who was the lowest bidder and the amount. So if you don't mind if I could do that right now. So for item 9G, Franklin D. Roosevelt Elementary School Safety Site Work Project, the lowest bidder was Crusader Fence Company, LLC, in the amount of $747,197. The base bid was $631,148 with an alternate number one of $116,049. So that was item 9G. Item 9H, the lowest bidder for John F. Kennedy Elementary School Safety Site Work bid acceptance was Schrader and Brandt Manufacturing, Inc. in the amount of $2,319,000 plus the 10% contingency. And then item 9I, Westlake Elementary School Safety Site bid acceptance. The lowest bidder was Crusader Fence Company, LLC, in the amount of $459,244. Base bid was $419,845 with an alternate number one of $39,399. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Item 11A, retirement classified personnel. The administration recommends approval of the retirement request from the following classified employee and requests an appropriate resolution be prepared commending her for her years of service with the district. Maria Guadalupe Zarate Benuto, Instructional Assistant, Special Education, MP Brown, date of hire September 3rd, 2002, effective June 8th, 2024. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously approved.
Mr. Early, can I just say one thing?
Yes,
Thank you.
please.
First of all, I want to say Happy Classified Employee Appreciation Week.
Yes.
They're a cornerstone of our district. So many of the folks live here in Daly City. So thank you all for your help. And for Ms. Zarate Benuto, you know, I see a lot of stories when I get retirement letters. And when I opened this one, it was just, there's a couple of lines I just thought were so beautiful. She wrote, "It's time to turn the page one more time. With all my gratitude for 20-plus years of work and experiences here at the Jefferson Elementary School District, I have decided that June 7th, 2024 will be my last day of work. I can say with certainty that I accomplished my mission. Thank you, because this district believed in me and gave me the opportunities I need to support my work as an educator. It's with great appreciation for all your support." I just thought, you know, it's so nice to see those. And thank you, Ms. Zarate Benuto, for your work.
Yes, I echo that. Thank you. Item 11D, administrative appointment 2024 to 25 for business services. The administration recommends approval of the following administrative appointment for 2024-2025. Josephine Peterson, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, District Office, effective July 1st, 2024. Range 5, Step 5. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously approved, and congratulations to, yes.
Unfortunately, she is unable to be here tonight because she is a CBO in another district and is probably doing the same presentation that Mr. Lauro is doing. So you'll get to meet her very soon, and she apologizes for not being able to be here, but she does have other obligations tonight in another district.
Okay.
Yeah, and I also do want to say that thankfully with my departure and being able to poach her, she's very experienced, and she's awesome, and she's so knowledgeable, and I can't wait for you guys to meet her. She's gonna be great.
Thank you for leaving us in good hands.
Only way I would do it,
Thank you. Okay, item 11F, job description for board certified behavior analyst. The administration recommends the creation of the board certified behavior analyst position and the adoption of the attached job description. The BCBA shall plan, design, monitor, and participate in implementing applied behavior analysis programs and service delivery options to meet the needs of students diagnosed with behavioral or social skill challenges at multiple school sites, assure compliance with district and SELPA administrative policies and state and federal laws and regulations.
Motion made.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously approved. All right. Item 12, right? Yep. Governance team member comments, reports, future agenda items, and board meeting reflection. I'll start with Trustee Jordan.
I just want to say thank you to everyone for their presentations tonight, especially our students. I also want to actually thank, I received some kind mail last week that I wasn't expecting from the Garden Village students in room 1. I got letters and pictures saying thank you for coming to read to our classroom. And my daughter got kind of jealous. She was like, why are other kids writing and drawing you pictures? So that made me feel really good. So I wanted to say thank you to you students from Garden Village Room 1. I really appreciated the letters. It really put a smile on my face, and I would be happy to come back and read to you. And then I also realized that this is the last board meeting before school is out. So if I don't get to see any of you before the school year is over, have a wonderful summer. Enjoy the time away from school, and hopefully you continue to read and keep up, so that way when you get to the next grade level, you are prepared for what is to come next. And with that, I will turn it over to Trustee Sujisaka.
Thank you very much. Happy Classified Week. Again, happy end of school to the families and the staff members. You've worked a hard year. Every year is a hard year in our profession. And and again, just gratitude to all the educators who are putting in their work, their hours here. I'm looking forward to our youth cinema project that is coming up. And then, and for the graduations, I think I'll be attending half of them, if not all of them. And then, if any of you all, I don't know if I'm allowed to invite them, but Superintendent McCulloch and I are going to be doing some school visits on Friday. So, or one school visit.
It's a super minimum day, so you probably only have time for one.
Thank you.
Yes, my colleague said it well. Just wanted to wish everybody the very best for finishing out the school year, and good meeting tonight. Thank you for all the presentations, especially the students from Daniel Webster.
Thank you. I'd just like to commend all the youth filmmakers and also the graduates to be from 8th grade. And thank you everyone for coming out tonight, and for the people that watched, hopefully on YouTube. And I will say that we did a good job of keeping our focus on the best interests of our students in order to provide an equitable future for our district. Superintendent McCulloch.
Yes, thank you. Happy Classified Week to all of our classified staff as well. And then, as I mentioned, open house tomorrow night. And then also to invite everyone to the ribbon cutting of the parking lot at Fernando and Thomas Edison is going to be next Wednesday at 3:15 in the parking lot. So we're finally opening, and we're excited to share it with the community. And then speaking of ribbon cuttings, to mark your calendars, we're going to have a ribbon cutting for Eastmore Heights, our staff housing, on August 6th at 11 a.m. And so I'll obviously remind you of it throughout the summer, but I just wanted to let it be known publicly as well that we'll be, staff will be moving in, we're hoping in June, and then we'll do the ribbon cutting as a welcome back to school when everyone's all settled. That's it.
Do we have any persons wishing to address the board on closed session items? Okay, so with that, we will go into recess for 5 minutes and reconvene at 9:57.